What are you reading?
The Dance of Dragons.
What's it about?
It's the story of the fight between Rhaenyra Targaryen and her half-brother dragon for control of the Seven Kingdoms.
"14 succession claims were heard, but only 2 were truly considered. Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, the king's eldest descendant, and her younger cousin, Prince Viserys.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be reviewing House of the Dragon Episode 1 with my friend Lucid. We actually recorded a reaction to Episode 1, but my computer didn't like that very much and completely destroyed the beautiful file that I had concocted up for it. And for obvious reasons, we can't redo reactions, so we're going to make a review and talk about the things we liked about the episodes, the thing we didn't like, which I didn't really dislike anything about the episode, but a few things I want to talk about specifically that do bother me about this show in some ways, but I'll get to that point when we talk about it. It's a bit difficult to talk about without touching spoilers. But anyways, if you want to talk about what you thought about Episode 1, she just finished watching Game of Thrones recently. She pretty much watched the entire show in a span of like a few months, which was really impressive. But yeah, so I'll let you go first because you are more fresh off the Game of Thrones bandwagon. So I'll let you go first and talk about what you thought about the episode as a whole.
Yeah, so I really liked the first episode. After I finished the Game of Thrones series, I enjoyed the series. I enjoyed the last season as well. Kind of a hot take, but I enjoyed it, and so I was really looking forward to House of the Dragon, and I think episode 1 really delivered. I think it really delivered. I liked it a lot.
I definitely think it delivered because I also liked Game of Thrones Season 8, so I had a lot of fun rewatching it. I just thought it was very rushed and that it should have been another 2 or 3 seasons. But with what we got, and because I don't really have the power to make it another 2 or 3 seasons, I'm still happy with it. I thought it was very entertaining, and it did wrap up in a satisfying way, even if I do think it should have been built up a little bit longer. Actually, a lot of bit longer, not 6 episodes. But yeah, Episode 1 of House of the Dragon. It's really fun for me to watch because seeing, no intro and just 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen and that whole story that we all, watched, that was really like, wow, all right, so we're going to see how we got to this point. And I know a lot about the Targaryen line, not specifically because they're all named the same goddamn name and they all marry each other because the Targaryens are known for their incest. That's part of their tradition. But this show specifically marks a huge turning point for the Targaryens. Game of Thrones Season 5 has a scene where Shireen talks to Stannis and she's reading a book called The Dance of Dragons, and that book in the show is what this show is based off of, and this show spans decades of conflict, so we're going to see characters age up throughout this show, and I think that the episode, the tone, the uncertainty of what's going to happen, if you don't know what's going to happen to some of the characters, it really built that up really well. Just the 172 years before this really just gave me chills. Like seeing how we're going to get to where we got at the beginning of Game of Thrones is going to be really interesting overall. So I really liked how they started just building that up. No intro, just how the story ends. This is how it's going to begin. I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree. I liked how it kind of just jumped in. It did give a little, explanation at the very beginning, like a little bit of context in terms of how many years we are ahead. It just kind of jumps into seeing the characters and getting into the action, so that's what I really liked as well.
Yeah, and I did a lot of brushing up on my Targaryen history from at least, from when the Targaryens left Valyria due to the prophecy of the doom of Valyria and whatever happened there. We don't know, but I'm pretty sure it was the volcano that erupted and that whole vision they had, and then they moved over to Westeros, and that's when my boy Aegon Targaryen the First came and fucked shit up, and from that point on is where it gets really interesting. Then we're left with the plot of this show, which led to Rhaenys Targaryen and Viserys Targaryen being two choices between being the heir. They obviously went with Viserys, as we see this show, which kind of set the precedent that a woman could not be queen, even though she was the older of the siblings. So technically, if they weren't sexist, it should have gone to her. And that kind of sets up the whole issue of dynasty and, you know, heir, and coming up with that whole precedence of a male can only be king. So I really like that we got that little bit of context before I switched over to you, because in Game of Thrones, we didn't get that. It was just, boom, welcome to Game of Thrones, bitch. And then everything just went to crap immediately. But I really appreciated that about that episode, even if I already knew about it, because the general audience might not.
But Viserys wasn't even like, he was like the nephew of the king, right? Like him and a girl are cousins, right? They're not brother and sister.
No, they're siblings.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
In general, I just really liked the pacing. Like episode 1, we're already, well, at least for me, I'm already like attached to some characters and really like some characters. So I think the character, I mean, technically there isn't really much world building that needs to happen, because we already know kind of what, you know, the world is. So maybe that's why it's easier for them to just jump in and introduce us to some characters. But yeah, I'm really attached. Like, I like Rhaenyra a lot, and even though, you know, Daemon's supposed to be the big bad of this era right now, or one of the big bads, I suppose, I really like his character as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the pacing, because, you know, when you first watch Game of Thrones is not at least in the first few seasons, it's not a exciting sci-fi fantastical show. It's very political, and the pacing at times is I don't want to say slow, because slow implies it being bad. It's a very slow burn. And I think there's a difference from being slow to a slow burn, because, like you mentioned, there doesn't really need to be a lot of world building, because we already know of Westeros, Essos. We already know, like, the generality of the world. What's different for us as an audience is seeing a Targaryen banner on, you know, the walls and whatnot of, you know, King's Landing, instead of a Lannister banner, because that's what we saw for 8 seasons up until, you know, the Targaryen banner was thrown when Daenerys finally got what she wanted for like 5 minutes. The one thing I want to talk about that I don't like, which is not the show's fault, it's my fault, because I got a little too curious, is I know a lot of what happens to the Targaryens, and not specifically to characters. I stopped like reading the lore up until the point in which the show starts. So that's the only thing I don't like, is that at some point there's and it's kind of an issue with all prequels, they have plot armor, because you know a certain character can't die, because you know that they're the great-great-great-great-grandfather of Daenerys. And if they die, Daenerys can't be born, so you know they're going to live and get out of a situation until they have that son and daughter. But that's the only thing I don't like. But like I said, it's not a show issue, it's just a prequel issue, and just knowing other knowledge about things. So that's the only thing I really going to be having an issue with throughout the course of the show.
I didn't realize until like watching the first episode and like the previews of the upcoming episodes that there's going to be a pretty significant time jump.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. So the like kid Rhaenyra and Alicent,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get them for like,
They're all going to
like, a
get
few
different actors.
episodes. Yeah.
You want him to have a son? I want to fly with you on Dragonback, see the great wonders across the narrow sea, and eat only cake.
I'm being serious. I never just about cake.
Okay, so the characters. We do want to talk about the characters here, because there's a lot of new characters, and I mean, technically they're old characters if you know the lore, but they're new characters to us. So I really want to start talking about the main protagonists of the show, or at least one of them, because if you know Game of Thrones, there's not really one main character, and that being Rhaenyra. She is now the heir of the Targaryen dynasty, and I know you wanted to talk about a little bit about Rhaenyra and her relationship with the other characters.
Yeah, I really liked Rhaenyra and Alicent's relationship, but it seems like that relationship is gonna get a little rocky very soon if the hand keeps urging Alicent to.
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Trying to go cheer the king up, go cheer, and she's like,
Yeah.
Alicent and Rhaenyra about to have a really strange relationship going forward.
Yeah, I it's kind of sad because I feel like all the issues that literally the fall of the Targaryen dynasty could have been avoided if they just weren't sexist.
Yeah.
Like no one had to have a gruesome, barbaric C-section. But like Rhaenyra, when her mother died and her brother died, I would have been pissed the hell off as well. Pissed the hell off.
Yeah, and you can tell Rhaenyra really had a good relationship with Emma, her mom. And although I knew Emma was eventually going to die, I wasn't sure in episode 1 because I do know that she does give birth to an heir. I just didn't know whether it was a boy or a girl. I just know that she does die in childbirth because they didn't explain the specifics of her death in the books and in like the lore and whatnot. Rhaenyra to me is like the Arya Stark of the show. You can tell that everyone wants her to be a certain way. They want her to be the princess. They want her to be the queen, but she wants to go be adventurous. She even says in the episode, I don't want to wear dresses. I want to go fly on the back of a dragon. And she has this conversation with her mother where her mother's like, but the way we fight battles is we produce heirs, we produce babies. That's how we, help. And then, 15 minutes later, our time, she's over here fighting her battles, and it gets her killed. And not only that, but it also completely cuts Viserys's male line.
And that's how we get folks like Daemon who make the gold cloaks and theatrics in the capital.
See, Daemon is my favorite character so far. A, because I love Matt Smith, because I grew up with Doctor Who, and he played my favorite Doctor. And 2, I like the gold cloaks because I think, if you're over here, I can't say these words in videos, but if you're over here doing these things to women or killing people, and you have this police force that's like an eye for an eye, basically, I think that really helps with potentially reducing those kind of things from happening. And Damien is just like, dude, I just know bullshit. Like, no offense, brother, I love you, but you're kind of a weak king. You need to have that iron fist. You need to instill a little bit of fear in people because that's what makes a strong ruler. Sometimes a good person doesn't make a good ruler, and that's unfortunate. And I think Daemon, although he has a very violent and twisted dark side, I think he truly does want what's best for his family and for his people, even if his way of showing it is probably not the best.
Yeah, I don't really get righteous vibes from him. I want the throne and I'm willing to play the game kind of vibes from him. I think that's why he's trying to be all nicey with Rhaenyra. The relationship at first sight, it seems like a cool Uncle niece relationship. But I don't know.
Yeah, and I think he does love I think your cousin or uncle. It's one of the two. I'm not quite sure. It's uncle. Yeah, it's uncle aunt, because Daemon is Viserys' brother and Rhaenyra is Viserys' daughter, so that would be her uncle. But I think he does love her, want to be with her. I mean, it's a very Targaryen thing to want. One more thing with Daemon I really like is the first time we see him, he's sitting on the Iron Throne. But I like how he's sitting on it so confidently because he really wants the throne. But when Viserys sits on the throne, which you only see for a very short amount of time, he gets cut by it, and he keeps getting cut by it, and his wounds won't heal because it kind of shows you that the throne is almost rejecting him as a ruler, and Daemon is accepting the throne. And I really like that imagery there. I really like that it's kind of setting up that imagery to where the throne's almost poisoning him, and it's causing this negative drama between his family.
What else? I do want to see more dragons. We can talk about dragons in our favorite episodes.
Yeah, so I know the showrunner said that in this story there's a total of 14 dragons, I think, and in season 1 we're going to see 9. I really like Syrax, which is Rhaenyra's dragon, I believe. And then the other dragon we see is Daemon's dragon, and I'm forgetting, is it Syrax and I forgot the other one. Syraxes, I think, or Caraxes. Correct.
Just as Daenerys foresaw the end of Valyria, Aegon foresaw the end of the world of men. Just to begin with a terrible winter.
So a scene that I really liked, I think, was the jousting scene. Mainly because we had to see all famous house names, and Daemon, we had to see more of like his character and how he fights, and his armor was really cool as
Yeah.
well. I have to admit that. But yeah, I really liked that scene because you mentioned this earlier that the tourney was supposed to be them like celebrating, but like all this violence was going on at the jousting, like the fighting was going on at the jousting, and then Emma was literally fighting for her life, like
Hmm.
trying to give birth. So I think the parallels are very interesting there.
For sure. I think for me, a scene that stood out the most was after Viserys had already named Rhaenyra his heir, because everyone was saying, "Oh, we should do Daemon, we should do Rhaenyra, we should do Rhaenys. Hell, we should do the Sneaky Snake for all we care." That they're trying to figure out what they're repeating history after Jaehaerys couldn't figure out what his heir was going to be. But when he's explaining to Rhaenyra what it means to be queen and what it's going to mean to be the next in line, and he's like, it's not just about, wearing dresses and all that. The whole reason that you're queen, the reason you're here, is because your great-great-grandfather, Aegon Targaryen, had a dream that the dead are going to march on us. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Because we never really got that in the lore. That was never mentioned in the lore. But George R. R. Martin, who worked on this show with the show writer, said, I want to tie this into Game of Thrones. And it doesn't break the lore or anything like that. It just never mentions it. And it makes sense because Targaryens are known to have visions that come to life. That's the whole reason why they left Valerian, or Valeria. And because 10 years later, the Doom of Valeria happened. And now you have Aegon Targaryen having this vision of the dead marching on Westeros, and only a united Westeros could stop this. And that the prince or princess who was promised, because in Valerian, as they say in Game of Thrones season 6 by what's her name, Missandei, she says in Valerian, prince doesn't have like a gender. It can mean princess too, and it's born of his line. So it's really interesting to see every single new heir be like, am I the prince who was promised? Is my son going to be the prince who was promised? I really like that. And then as all this is going down, you see all the houses swear fealty to the new heir. And then you get people like Rickard Stark, and you're like, oh, the Starks. And it's just like a little piece of it's so heartwarming, even though a lot of them don't want to do that. It's just really cool to see all these houses come back, like the Starks, the Tullys. I want to know where they're at, and that was just a really cool scene that stood out to me for those two reasons. It represents the current state of the show and where this is leading.
Mm-hmm. So like for the vision, the dance of ice and fire, right?
Yeah.
When it's gonna happen, they just know it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's like living in California. We have the big one that's coming, and we don't know if it's our generation or hell, it could have already happened, and we don't know. But I completely feel that with Targaryens.
My family has just been destroyed. But instead of being by my side or Rhaenyra's, you chose to celebrate your own rise.
So yeah, final thoughts about this episode. Really strong start. Like you said earlier, the pacing was great. I'm really liking these characters because Daemon to me is not a villain per se. He's just an antagonist. But if you support Daemon, you're like, he's kind of an asshole, but he makes a good point. Maybe if he was king, it'd be a little unhinged, but he's not Ares level Mad King, I don't think.
Just a little unhinged.
Yeah, just a little unhinged. Just not quite Mad King level yet. But you can kind of see hints of that. And then you have Viserys, who's a good man, but he's not a good king because he inherited the Targaryen dynasty at its height. And now with this episode, you can really see it starting to trickle down and get to that Dance of Dragons kind of conflict. It had the tone, it had the pacing, it had the character interactions we're all familiar with in a show like Game of Thrones. And I'm just excited to see more of it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to see more Rhaenyra. I think she's like my main favorite character right now, based off of episode 1.
Yeah, for me, it's Daemon. I just love Daemon. It's only because it's Matt Smith. I mean, if it wasn't played by anyone other than Matt Smith, I probably you gotta go. Which, something we forgot to talk about, actually, while we're on Daemon, before we switch over to episode 2 stuff, or actually watch it, I should say, the whole king for 5 hours thing, that's something that's going to be interesting, because I don't know if Daemon actually killed the baby, or if it was just like some celebratory, like, yeah, I could be the heir now. And then, he had this whole conflict with his brother, and he banished him over to the Stormlands or whatever. But yeah, that was a really interesting.
I don't think he had anything to do with the baby dying. I think that's all on Viserys.
Yeah.
Viserys, yeah. But that was kind of, well, not funny, but like when he found out that he said that he was like, why are you saying this in front of people?
My
Like,
theory is that because Otto was there and Otto Hightower was the one who's Hand of the King, was the one who told Viserys this. I think he's trying to purposely drive conflict between the two, because these are two brothers who actually love each other. They want the best for each other, but Otto wants Daemon as far away from the throne as possible, so he's trying to drive conflict. So although Daemon did say that, I think Daemon said that because he was excited to be the heir again, because that's something he likes, power, he likes being in charge. And then I don't think he actually would kill, you know, I don't think Daemon's that cruel, but I don't know. We've only spent one episode with him.
that is true. I don't think he killed his nephew, but the hand though, the hand reminds me of Littlefinger. Which Littlefinger died way too freaking late in the game. So hopefully the hand doesn't die late. But he reminds me a lot of Littlefinger.
Anyways, I guess enough theorizing. We still have 3 more episodes to go through, and I don't know how many seasons the show is going to go through, but we still have a lot more Targaryen stuff ahead of us. But yeah, solid episode. I'm really excited to see episode 2, episode 3, 4, and so on. Acting was great. Cinematography amazing. Dragons look cool. That's everything I wanted to talk about for episode 1. So if you have anything last you'd like to say, go ahead.
No, I think that's it. I'm like kinda not really looking forward to the time jump, only because I like the young characters we have, but who knows, maybe that'll change as
I think
those grow. Or maybe it'll like worsen and I'll definitely not want the time jump to happen. But
well, at least we know Rhaenyra and Alicent won't die in between now and the time jump, because they have an older actor. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But thank you all so much for watching. If you like this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. Let me know what your favorite moment was down in the comments below. And if you want to be notified every single time I upload a new House of the Dragon video, don't forget to hit that notification bell. And I guess with all that being said, I'll see you guys in our next video, which will hopefully be a reaction that doesn't get completely corrupted. Anyways, I digress. I'll see you guys in the next House of the Dragon video, which hopefully isn't corrupted.